Hello, everyone. Welcome to She Knows Arsenal. This is going to be an update for Aaron Ramsdale. Um, I'm just trying to get things together really quick because this news just came out, and I'm trying to make sure that I have all the right information. Um, but welcome to She Knows Arsenal, giving you the most recent Arsenal news and transfer news. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. This is very impromptu, but teams are circling around Aaron Ramsdale. Obviously, David Raya started Arsenal's match against Everton yesterday. Arsenal won 1-0. Ramsdale was dropped to the bench. Mikel Arteta has made it very clear in the media, at least, that Aaron Ramsdale and David Raya are going to be a part of a rotating group of goalkeepers. There is no set number one. And basically, this is Arteta's idea of like something different, goalkeepers sharing time, being more like outfield positions, things like that. And so, there's two schools of thought. The first school of thought being, this makes total sense. Innovation, innovation, innovation. The game evolves, and this makes sense to make the goalkeeper situation just like outfield players. And then there's the other school of thought of you don't really need to change the goalkeeper situation. And so Arsenal find themselves in a situation where, I think the club is being criticized for maybe making a situation more complicated than it needs to be. Fast forward to today, a day after the first day that Aaron Ramsdale does not start for Arsenal Football Club. Arsenal goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale is being monitored by rival clubs after being dropped for David Raya by Mikel Arteta during their win at Everton, with Chelsea and Bayern keeping tabs on the England shot stopper. This is coming from Sammy McBell from the Daily Mail. If you guys remember, during the entire transfer saga for Declan Rice, as well as all of Arsenal's transfer dealings, as well as Chelsea and West Ham, he's been very, very on the nose for it. So this is not just like any old person. This is somebody that probably knows what they're talking about. Arsenal goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale's future is being closely monitored by rival clubs after his role as first choice was thrown into uncertainty. As Mailsport first predicted on September 6th, summer signing David Raya was handed his Gunners debut in place of Ramsdale for a hard-fought win over Everton on Sunday. Mikel Arteta's decision to start Raya at Goodison Park has cast doubt over Ramsdale's position in the head coach's immediate to long-term plans, which again, it's all about what you believe. Do you believe that we're actually trying to recreate the goalkeeper situation, or is this a slow divorce between Arsenal and Aaron Ramsdale? You tell me. Before and after the win on Merseyside, Arteta intimated that he would look to rotate Raya and Ramsdale this season, whilst also hinting he is open to making goalkeeper substitutions during matches. Arteta's comments appear to suggest that Ramsdale still is an important role to play for Arsenal this season. So again, nothing from Arteta's standpoint, I think, has changed. At least in the media, he is saying that Arsenal want to change the way the goalkeeper situation is handled. You're not going to have a stationary number one. You're going to have two players fighting it out for that position. And, if he could, he would change the goalkeeper mid-game. That is what he is doubling down with. Now, here comes the information that makes it more interesting. Nevertheless, Ramsdale's situation is already interesting a number of teams, with Chelsea and Bayern Munich among those understood to be keeping abreast of developments, amid a sense that Raya was likely to overtake the England international at some point this season following an initial loan arrival from Brentford. Chelsea signed Robert Sanchez from Brighton in the summer, but remain open to strengthening their goalkeeper options, while it's no secret that Bayern are looking for a long-term successor to Manuel Neuer, who is 38 in March. So we all know about Bayern Munich's, goalkeeper situation. They're having, they want to find, like this is already said, they want to find somebody to succeed Manuel Neuer, and they're looking for a number one, and they really struggled to find one over the summer. And so potentially in their mind, Aaron Ramsdale would be available. For Chelsea, they brought in Robert Sanchez, but they're going to look for another number one. They're going to look for somebody that I think they feel like is a part of their more long-term vision. And so you have two what you would consider top teams looking at our situation and thinking that Aaron Ramsdale is somebody that they can poach, which if I'm Aaron Ramsdale and I have the option as a goalkeeper to choose a rotating situation at Arsenal or a potentially like number one situation somewhere else, I probably would consider it if you want to make sure that you're the number one for England at some point as well. Given Arteta's remarks on how he views the goalkeeper position, it is likely any January interest in Ramsdale will be met with short thrift, but it remains to be seen how Arsenal react if they were to receive offers for Ramsdale in excess of 60 million next summer. So interesting. That's a very specific number. Ramsdale has established himself as one of the best emerging goalkeepers in Europe since his arrival from Sheffield in 2021. He has become a fixture in Gareth Southgate's squad and made 4 senior appearances for his country, with many believing he should be playing ahead of number 1 Jordan Pickford. Indeed, there has been a degree of shock behind the scenes at the Emirates at Ramsdale's omission from the starting 11 against the Toffees, while sections of the fan base believe the 25-year-old has done little to nothing to warrant scrutiny over his regular selection. However, there have been internal concerns about Ramsdale's start to the season. The keeper has faced 9 shots on target so far and conceded 4 times, a save percentage of 55%. So just going back to, the part about Aaron Ramsdale being one of the best young keepers, up and coming keepers in Europe, that is 100% true. I think in the midst of speaking about how Arsenal can get better, that does not take away the fact that Aaron Ramsdale is a very talented young goalkeeper. But at this stage of Arsenal's progression, the margins are so fine. They're so fine that in my mind, if we had lost to Everton yesterday, the title is almost gone because you would have already been 5 points behind a Manchester City that we know can go on a 15 to 20 game, win streak. And we're likely to still drop more points. That is the game that we're playing up against. It's Manchester City, and the fact that they've made everything so close to perfection that a goalkeeper like Aaron Ramsdale, who has done little to nothing wrong, has to be looked at as, is this somewhere where we could gain an extra percentage? That is how ruthless Arsenal are going to have to be in order to win things against a team like Manchester City, right? And so I'm not surprised that there have been internal conversations around Aaron Ramsdale, not because he's not a good player, but just because you have to figure out where the margins are. That's why we have a set piece coach. That's why, we do everything to make sure that we just get a little bit extra. And the goalkeeper situation is one that is definitely being looked at. And so, it's not the type of news that you want to hear on a Monday morning, the day after a big win, after um, you know, finally getting over this mental thing with Goodison Park. The last thing you want to hear is that after Arteta's talked all this kind of like big game about how, we're going to have these 2 goalkeepers and they're going to be fighting it out, is that Aaron Ramsdale is being looked at. And so, and I know some people will say, well, how do you know Aaron Ramsdale wants to leave? I don't know. But what I do know is that for a goalkeeper, especially a young one that's looking to establish himself in his national team, squad, and to potentially become a number one, he's going to need to be playing and be the number one at somebody's club. So if Chelsea come knocking, if, Bayern Munich come knocking, you will look at that opportunity and say, is this a better situation for me so I can get where I need to go? Aaron Ramsdale has just kind of signed a new deal, which at Arsenal, I don't think new deals necessarily mean we want you for the long term. I think a lot of these new deals, except for maybe Saka's new deal, Odegaard's, potential new deal, probably new deal, they're to make sure you maintain the value. And Aaron Ramsdale has a lot of value for Arsenal. If it doesn't work out at Arsenal and he wants to move on for an England international, young goalkeeper with the amount of experience that he has, Arsenal should be demanding in excess of 60 million for him. And so, getting him on the new deal is important, especially before you're going to bring in somebody like Raya. But my feelings around the goalkeeper situation always kind of evening out to one number one and one clear number two. This news kind of aligns with that, but it's still early days, and maybe this is just teams looking, but this is not the type of thing you need or the type of headlines coming out you want after being so bullish about the idea that this is some grand plan that like everybody's okay with. Um, so yeah, it's one of those. YF says the English media is gaslighting. I mean, I would say that maybe if it would be more of them just making it up had it just been some person that's not very reliable. But this is the exact same person who said that David Raya will get a chance literally right after the international break. And he's the only person who said that. So it's not like it's somebody that's not reliable. And I always check the name, who wrote it. That's always significant. Like we always say that, the Mirror is not reliable, but certain people at certain places are reliable. You have to read who it's coming from and who's writing it. And Sammy McBell is about as reliable as it gets for Chelsea and Arsenal right now. And so it's just one of those things where it's like you have to look at it and see, just read through it and see, like, does it sound like gaslighting, or does it sound like maybe it could be true? And is it that far-fetched that Bayern Munich and Chelsea would be looking at the situation with Ramsdale and they think that they could potentially snap up a really good goalkeeper from Arsenal? No, that is not that far-fetched. It's not like he's saying that we're going to sign Messi tomorrow. So yeah, Ramsey says, big up, Jess. Who would you start next week in goal in the North London derby, Ramsdale or Raya? I would say, just based on the fact that I feel like Raya is a better goalkeeper, I would start Raya. Like, I've said it kind of from the beginning that even though I love Ramsdale and I think he's a great goalkeeper, we wanted David Raya first. He was one of the better goalkeepers in the league last season, where Ramsdale was kind of like lower middle. And there's just a level of kind of calm, and he's better on the ball. And so if I want to play out of the back and I want to make sure that we maintain possession, I'm going to probably go for Raya. That's probably what I would go with. But that doesn't mean that Ramsdale has done much wrong. Again, it's about fine margins and the fact that, like, you just don't have much wiggle room in the Premier League. It's a slippery slope from challenging for a title and being in a top 4 scrap. So, yeah. Adeg Boyega says, I feel that Arsenal fans are the ones gaslighting the goalkeeping issue. Arteta wants structure that will work for him, and I think we all need to support him. The goal is to win trophies. Fan says, unless the player comes out and says he's unhappy with the situation, I'll take it with a grain of salt about him being unhappy. It's not about, he doesn't have to be unhappy for Chelsea and Bayern Munich to be interested in buying him. That's the thing. It's like, nobody has suggested that Aaron Ramsdale is behind the scenes in the dressing room acting up. Like, nobody is saying that. What they are saying is that other teams are seeing him as a potential number one goalkeeper that they can bring in maybe in the summer. And so I think what we're getting a little bit in the weeds about, well, we don't know if Ramsdale's unhappy. We don't have to know whether he's unhappy to know that clubs are going to look at him. And if you're Ramsdale and you're sitting on Arsenal's bench and, your playing time has been cut in half or even more than half, let's say we get to the end of the season and Raya's played more games than Ramsdale. If Bayern Munich come and say, we want you to be our number one, or Chelsea says, we want you to be our number one, do you really think he's not going to think about it, knowing that as somebody that wants to be England's number one, you have to be starting somewhere? Like, literally, like, you have to be starting somewhere. You have to be the number one. So, and I don't think Southgate or anybody else is going to say, well, you know what? I get Arteta's vision. It's fine. Like, no. So yeah, like, that's all I'm saying is that nobody is saying that Ramsdale is ready to pack his bags. I'm just saying that, they see him as an opportunity. And so, yeah. Just a Jay says, always thought after international break, it would be spooky times for Rambo. And the other thing is we don't, actually know what's going to happen, because I remember when I suggested that he would be dropped for Everton, that people were like, "Oh, no way. Raya is going to start against Brentford, and he was dropped right away after like 4 games. So, this could happen a lot quicker than we think. And people are assuming that he's going to come straight back in against PSV. I don't know anything. I cannot read Mikel Arteta right now. I think he's trying to keep his cards super close to his chest, like he was with Gabrielle. And there's always more to the story than what Arteta's putting out there. He is one of the most tight-lipped and unreadable managers in the league when it comes to speaking to the media. So we have no idea what's going on. Truly. Ramsey says Ramsdale needs to replace Jordan Pickford for the upcoming Euro 2024. I don't think Southgate will do that. Unknown C says, honestly, don't see it as a bad thing. Side effect of players having real value. Boy says Ramsdale was getting sloppy in goal. Arteta will no doubt give him the next start in the league, but not against PSV. Nico says basically he's a liar. I mean, I'm just saying that I don't always believe everything that Mikel Arteta says, because sometimes it doesn't line up with other things that I read or see, or or I feel like, like Arteta sometimes, like, he's very clever at trying not to give anything away. Eric Toss says I could sense it. I remember stating that Ramsdale is going to be replaced by Raya. And again, like, some people are like, no, it's rotation. Brighton are doing it, so we're doing it, and that's it. And then I still am kind of like maybe 70% thinking that this is a slow breakup, and 30% thinking that this is going to work out as some like evolutionary, like rotational situation. I know that they're doing it at Brighton, but I'm not sure that I believe it's going to happen at Arsenal, and just because things work out at other clubs doesn't always mean it's going to work out for us. And the intention could be that this is what we want to do. But it may not work out because, maybe Ramsdale doesn't want to do it. You never really know. African soldier says, of let the battle of the R's begin. So the battle of Ramsdale versus Raya. I hear you. Justa J says, even if Arteta wants 2 rotational goalkeepers, the real question is, are the players okay with it? And that's kind of like, you just never really know. I think David Raya comes into the situation knowing ahead of time that he's going to get playing time, maybe even feeling confident enough that he can beat out Ramsdale for the spot. And Ramsdale is sitting there after signing a new deal, and Matt Turner going and seeing another number 1 goalkeeper that we historically wanted showing up and then starting in the 5th game of the season. If you asked Ramsdale at the end of last season if he could have foresaw this situation, I'm pretty sure he would say no. So it's all about, like, if people are okay with things, and if what other opportunities come up for you. Like I always said, from an Arsenal perspective, would I love to just be able to have like a harmonious situation with Ramsdale and Raya? Yes, because that's beneficial for us. But as somebody that's looking from the player side, like I did with Balogun, I'd want him to fight for a spot. But if he doesn't want to, I can understand as a player why you want to push to do something more. And so if Ramsdale did decide that this is not what he wants to do, I could not even blame him, because it's a short career. It's a short career. So, it is what it is. So OG says Ramsdale is a beneficiary of those fine margins. When he displaced another good goalkeeper, Bernd Leno simply couldn't give us those things the team require. We all know Raya is a better goalkeeper. It was interesting because on NBC, when I was before the game, they were doing like, their little pre-match stuff, and they had Lee Dixon and Robbie Earl up there, and they both asked them who they thought the better goalkeeper was, Ramsdale or Raya, and they both said Ramsdale. Now I know they're English, so they kind of have to say that, but like, deep down in your heart, do you actually believe that Ramsdale is the better goalkeeper? I don't think I know I don't believe that. And so deep down in my heart, I do feel like this is just a slow breakup. And this is the guy that they always kind of wanted. And there's no shame like in trying to upgrade. It's just the way that you do it. Um, Rowan says, I like Rams, but Raya looks really good, and I think he'll be number one. If Ramsdale wants to go next summer, the club must sell him top price. And then get a number 9 next. Harry says, say we did let Ramsdale go. What fee would you want for him knowing he's got years left on his contract? That's why it's so good to renew the contract. He's also English and he's also in England, like he's in England international. So when you can always pitch to whoever, it's like, this is going to be the England number 1 goalkeeper. So, you know, um, you need to pay up. I wouldn't like honestly, we shouldn't accept anything under 60 million. That's kind of how I feel about it. Anything under 60 million would be robbery for the other team. So and that's a good thing for Arsenal is that there's value there. And then also there's the aspect of like anybody that we lose at this point or that moves on from the club at this point, it's going to hurt. Watching Xhaka go, like watching Bayer Leverkusen play, I feel some type of way. And I never thought I would because Granite really grew on me. So anybody we lose at this point, it's going to feel some type of way. And so I do understand the aspect of people just wanting to keep Ramsdale because they love him. And he's a big part still of a team that has really come from like nothing, a rebuilt side of young players that have taken us from fifth to second, so eighth to fifth to second. So there's an attachment there, but there's also like Arsenal need to be pushing to make sure that they can get as close to Manchester City as possible. And if that means making sure that you have another really top goalkeeper there, then that's what it means. But there could always be consequences to those actions. Emmanuel says, just as much as I love Ramsdale, I was so comfortable yesterday. Raya felt so slick, and he was so good at claiming crosses and releasing pressure from the back line. His distribution was really good yesterday, and that's, I think, the main thing that, Ramsdale, obviously, like looking at the numbers, I was kind of shocked that he's performing as one of the worst goalkeepers in the league. And basically anything that the opposition, any shot that the opposition has with Ramsdale in the goal goes in. And so even though we don't give away a lot of chances, the chances that we give up, we need our goalkeeper to save them. The best example of that is Allison. Whether Liverpool were good or not, he was saving their ass. And especially like with Liverpool playing that really high line that we kind of play, you are always susceptible to that one pass in behind your back line and a good counterattacking team being in on goal. And you kind of need those opportunities to become saves. Like you need your goalkeeper to come up big. You need them to take control of their box. You need them to discourage the opposition from trying to come in there and do shit. And I do think that as time went on, the opposition was more and more encouraged by, if we could just get in and around the box and shoot it at his near post, or, if we could get a set piece, and just kind of put some pressure on him, there's a good chance that we get a goal. And that's kind of been the theme early on in the season, even in preseason. So I'm not surprised. But the distribution part of Ramsdale as well has really just kind of tailed off, surprisingly too, because that was like the one thing that he really had at the beginning when he first came in. And so seeing Raya with the distribution and his calmness, although Everton didn't really prove to be that threatening, you just still need to not encourage them at all. And I think Raya did a good job of not encouraging them at all, which is great. Boy said the back line looked much calmer with Raya in goal. YF says Arteta has stated that no player is guaranteed a starting position, and he has extended that principle to the goalkeepers. Eric said, but it's crazy. He just signed a new contract. I really do implore people to not think of new contracts at Arsenal as a sign of you're going to stay for the length of that contract. There are some players in the team, we've spoken about this before, that I do think have higher rank in terms of, there's a couple of players in our team that no matter what we do out there in the market, we cannot get better than them. That's it. That's as good as that position gets because we already have them in our team. That's probably Saka. That's probably Martin Odegaard, Saliba, maybe one or two other players in our team. But there are other positions where we like the player and they're very, very good, but we could still upgrade upon them. So you still have to renew their contract. But if you have the opportunity to upgrade upon them, you do that and you maintain their value and you sell them. And I think Ramsdale is one of those that was not seen as we cannot upgrade upon this guy. They literally went out there and found a goalkeeper that's an upgrade on him. And without going through the other players or anything like that, I think people think of new contracts as we want you for the long haul. And that's how it kind of looks on socials. Like you see it on the website and it looks like, oh, we love this player. We're going to keep this player. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But I mean, even Kieran Tierney got a new contract not too long ago, and he was on the chopping block 2 summers later. So it really is just about maintaining value, I think, more than anything. And then, you have maybe 2, 3 players in the team that a new long-term deal means we want to keep you forever. Chris John says, media added again, just one match on the bench and sky has fallen. I would agree with you if it wasn't somebody that is incredibly reliable. iPass says, we need to move on from Ramsdale if we want to win trophies. His comments last season pissed me off. The one thing I will say is that, like, the players, if you want behind the scenes and like things that, how they feel, and you want to know more about players and their thought processes, you have to also accept that they're going to say things that aren't necessarily what you want them to say. They can give you a media trained answer all day long, but I think we have some players on our team that tend to be incredibly honest when they get in front of the camera and they say things that fans don't want to hear. Like, we, thought we would just continue to win, and we weren't really concentrating, and, we maybe got a little bit too confident. People don't want to hear that, but that's probably the truth. And I don't actually blame Ramsdale for telling us the truth because we saw it with our own 2 eyes. Gabriel Jesus coming out and saying that, like, basically once Saliba went down, that's when the season went down. Like, he could have said something else, but that was the truth. And I actually don't have a problem with players telling the truth. I accept that, what I'm seeing is probably what they're going to say. And Ramsdale basically just said that we bottled it, you know, and we could see it with our own 2 eyes. So I'm not that disappointed in him telling the truth. What I do agree with is that we have to find the margins. And if that's the goalkeeper position, which is what you're saying, iPads is like, that is the difference between us winning trophies and not, then we have to explore those situations. Ramsey says, Jess, what's your thoughts on Newcastle lining up a January move for West Ham midfielder Lucas Paqueta on 52 million, according to David Ornstein? I mean, that's what we should be doing, but we're not going to do it because we've already filled that position with somebody else. So getting Bruno Guimaraes and Lucas Paqueta in one team is going to be very good for Newcastle, unfortunately, for the rest of us. So good for them. Hope it doesn't happen, but, it's kind of annoying that we're not doing that. Chris John says Arsenal have lacked quality depth for years. Now that we have it, it's become a problem. The thing about it is, like, if we're going to be disingenuous and act like the goalkeeper situation is not historically one where there's a number one, a clear number one, and a number two, I agree with depth everywhere else in all the other 10 like outfield positions. I have no issue having Trossard and Vieira and, Nketiah and, all these additional players. Tommy, I have no problem with that. But the goalkeeper situation is different. And to pretend like it's not, I think is disingenuous. Like, there's a reason why most people have a clear number one, you know? You want to start every single game. It's a different position. Even if Arteta wants to change it and De Zerbi is doing it and Pep has done it in the past, that doesn't mean that it's like just going to work out just because that's what we want to do. So yeah. Hightower says the strange thing about Ramsdale is that his distribution was better in the first season. Exactly. Emmanuel says, just do you think Ramsdale will play against PSV just to reward him for getting us back into UCL? Yeah. Like, I think he will play against PSV at home. But I think Raya will start against Tottenham, so maybe Ramsdale is the Champions League goalkeeper and Raya is the Premier League goalkeeper. I don't know, so but that's what I would probably do. I would start Ramsdale against PSV because I mean, you do want to give back to somebody and be like, you helped us get here, so you play in this competition. It's a big deal. But, you know, if I have to pick the team against Tottenham, I'm gonna pick Raya, and see if we could get a clean sheet at home with a different goalkeeper, because that is still an Achilles heel. So yeah. Um, um, so Agecha says, "Are you concerned about Saka though? His Achilles problem is concerning." I'm not I'm concerned, but not to the level of like where it's top of mind. I think what I'm more concerned about is you know, just Arsenal winning games and clicking and things like that. I think with Saka, I want to believe that the club is doing the best and they understand what's going on behind the scenes in terms of their fitness. And Arteta says everybody's kind of carrying little injuries and it's fine. So I want to believe that that's the case. So I don't want to be like about to lose my mind every single time Saka is hit or tackled or anything. It is something that I'm concerned about, but I'm willing to try to believe that the club is doing the right thing, if that makes sense. It's not high priority. High priority for me is win the Champions League game, please. So, um, Zich says if Onana is 60 million, then Ramsdale should be at least that much. I agree. Rydog says people would be livid if Ramsdale were injured and the only option was Matt Turner and Carl Hein. Yeah, but still, like, it's disingenuous to say that like the only option was to go out there and get another number one goalkeeper who you wanted before you wanted Ramsdale, which is going to cost you 30 million and is one of the better goalkeepers in the league. So you can go get a better option than Matt Turner as your number two. Like Ortega, I think his name is, for Manchester City. He's not the goalkeeper that you always wanted. That's it, you know what I mean? Like, and he's a clear number two to Ederson. We have not gone and done that. So I don't really think that like I can understand more people saying, well, now we have strength and depth because we went out there and got a top number two goalkeeper and it's still a clear line between Ramsdale and this other number two. But it's not that. We went out there and we got a number one goalkeeper that is better than Ramsdale. That's not really just backfilling just in case Ramsdale gets injured. It's not that. We know it's not that. It's different. Jezza says, please don't feel the media fire on this. It's pure speculation and typical of the mainstream media. Again, if it was just some random, blog or something like that, I wouldn't have even said anything. But one, this is my channel and this is what I should do. It's like when something comes out about Arsenal, we speak about it. Doesn't necessarily mean that like I don't feel like the right thing to do is act like things aren't happening so I don't fuel the media. I think it's up to us to make a decision on whether or not we agree with it or we believe it's true. So yeah, but this is coming from a reliable outlet. And so all we're really saying at this point is that Chelsea and Bayern Munich are interested in, or at least just monitoring the situation around Ramsdale. Not saying that Ramsdale is packing his bags, not saying that anybody hates Ramsdale, but it's okay for us to talk about situations. Like it's going to be talked about regardless to if I have do a stream on it or not. And I want to talk about it. That's it. I don't know why people have such an issue with talking, but it's like anything that they feel like is going to bring negativity to the club is something that people don't even want content creators to talk about. But that's exactly the job, is to talk about things, whether it's good or bad. And then we decide whether or not we believe it and how we feel about the situation. Nico says, Jess, some people triggered with this topic. People can't just face reality. And I think I understand where it comes from. It comes from like, I think maybe years of Arsenal always being banter club and always everything being negative. So we want to make sure that we stifle any negativity because we don't want Arsenal to be in the media in a negative light, but it's going to be there regardless. So for me, I'm not here to stop certain conversations from happening. I'm actually here to foster conversations. And so again, it does not mean that I believe 100% Ramsdale is leaving in the summer. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm intimating. What I am saying is that I'm not quite sure that it's just going to be as clear and as comfortable as Ramsdale. You're sharing this position with Raya, and that if Chelsea or Bayern Munich come from in the summer, he won't at least entertain it. Um, and I why wouldn't they be interested in him? They need number one goalkeepers, and he's a good one, So it is what it is. Nashville says, I'm not sure why people are surprised. Raya has been Arteta's first choice since he got here, and that's who he wanted before Ramsdale. Exactly. Denver says, it's the Daily Mail. We all know how they act with English players. Again, when it comes to journalists and media outlets, it's more important to recognize who's writing it and not where it's coming from. Sammy McBell is very reliable when it comes to Arsenal and Chelsea. So, and he didn't say that Ramsdale is kicking up a fuss or anything like that. He literally just said that Chelsea and Bayern Munich are interested in the situation and want to know what's going on with him. That doesn't mean like what I'm not understanding like why this is being looked at as some like hunt on Arsenal when he's not really saying anything about Arsenal. He's saying that other clubs are interested, or at least want to understand the situation. I'm surprised that people are so like, oh my gosh, it's like a witch hunt. It's not. But at the same time, you can't expect to make a big decision like dropping your number one goalkeeper in the fifth game of the season and it not be spoken about by the media. Um, you know, I don't know. It's just one of those. Again, I think anything about like Ramsdale being miserable and look at him like I have seen that kind of stuff. Like he looks miserable. He's gonna cause a problem in the dressing room. That's not even what's being said. It's not even what's being said. Not by me. iPad says, is Ramsdale a Premier League winning goalkeeper? I don't see that, and clearly Arteta don't see that because he bought Raya and now dropped Ramsdale. Ramsdale's days are at Arsenal are over, in my opinion. Not sure I would go that far into his like career is over, but I definitely think there's something there when you start talking about bringing in a number one goalkeeper that's better than the goalkeeper that you have, and then trying to convince us that it's not because you don't see any flaws in Ramsdale at all. Nashville says Ramsdale should be miserable. You don't want players who are happy about being dropped. And that's the thing is like, all I'm saying is that, and that's where like the part of the conversation where I'm saying that if Chelsea or Bayern Munich were to come in for him, I would expect him to be interested because he probably wants to play and he probably wants to be a clear number one. I would imagine all goalkeepers want to be a clear number one, right? And so I would expect him to be like wanting to be a number one somewhere or, at least being uncomfortable with the situation. But am I saying that he's ready to pack his bags and he's causing a problem in the dressing room? Absolutely not. Like when the guy on NBC was saying it, I was like, how on earth do you have that type of information? But I would expect other teams to be looking at him. I would. Hightower says Arteta really loves throwing curveballs. He does. He likes to keep things unpredictable. Aha says, but this is a place now where I can see myself for 10, 12, 15 years. That's the aim. That's the goal. That's the aim to stay at the top for that amount of time. Ramsdale in mid-March. That means nothing to me. I've seen players say that they have no real want to leave a club and this is where they want to be and then leave the very next summer. So he can say that, but also the club gave him a new contract and then brought in another goalkeeper. So on both sides, Arsenal can be saying that they love Ramsdale and they can see him here for the foreseeable future. And Ramsdale can say that this is a place that he wants to stay for a certain amount of time. And Bayern Munich come calling and he pack his shit and Arsenal, agree to sell him, So I don't be believing half this stuff, if I'm really honest with you. I don't be believing half this stuff. I don't. It, because I've seen enough in football to know that things change very, very quickly. And it's not always as cut and dry as what they say is what they mean. There's a lot of things to read between the lines sometimes. So, yeah. Sam says one characteristic of quality goalkeepers is when they step on the ball, when they scan the pitch for the next pass. Um, yeah, I mean, he is a good ball playing goalkeeper, Ramsdale. Like I want to reiterate multiple times that I don't even think Ramsdale's crap. I think he's actually very good. But again, it's a slippery slope. It's a very fine line between fighting for the title and being in a top four scrap. And that could end up being your goalkeeper. And he is very, very good with his feet. I just don't understand what's happened with his distribution. Denver says we are doing the Brighton thing. Nobody talks about it when they do it. Well, nobody talks about Brighton when they do it because Brighton are not a big club. So let's start there. Arsenal are a bigger club and we generate the most clicks and the most eyes. Like that's why they talk about everything that we do. And second, again, just because Brighton are doing something doesn't mean it'll naturally work for Arsenal. And Arsenal's could, like Arteta could be genuinely wanting to have two really good goalkeepers and to, you know, change the way that the goalkeeper situation is looked at Arsenal. But that does not stop Bayern Munich and Chelsea from looking at Ramsdale because they can offer him a clear position as a number one. Two things can be true. Arsenal could want the number, like those two number one goalkeepers, and want that situation to work out, and it still could not work out. So I think that people like that's clear. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work out. So yeah, let's see. Jesus says every position can be rotated. Why not the keeper? Nobody's saying it can't be. Again, you guys are getting wrapped up in the like, oh, so because this rumor is out there, the media is making up this thing about how you can't have two number one goalkeepers. Nobody has said that you can't. The information is that Bayern Munich and Chelsea are monitoring the situation. So you can have two number one goalkeepers, but that doesn't mean that it's just going to work out. And Brighton are doing it and it's working out for them. But you never know. You can get to the summer and one of them might want to leave because they want to be a clear number one. And maybe another club is looking at, it's nobody's saying that Arsenal can't do it. That's not what anybody is saying. I think people are getting way too like they're thinking too like deeply into it. Like you can have two number ones, and we will have two number ones for the entire season because we're not selling Ramsdale in January. But that's not going to stop teams from calling. It's not. So yeah, like I love Ramsdale, and I want it to work out with the two number ones, and to see how this works out. And we will get to see it because he'll be here the entire season. But I would have loved to have gotten past Monday without hearing anything, and that everybody's just hunky dory and there's nothing going on. And not saying that anything is truly going on, like he's packing his bags. But yeah, if I'm Bayern Munich, I probably am sniffing around the situation because if I need a good number one goalkeeper and there's one available on Arsenal's bench, I'm going to take it, you know? So there you go. Yo-Yo says, I hope Rams is flipped. Sorry. I hope Rams is flipped for a major money. Otherwise, I'm revisiting my dislike for our famed goalkeeper coach. If you were to go, we would have to get a significant fee. Like there is no loaning him to Bayern Munich for like nothing and then getting nothing, like 60 million plus or step, like for real. Name Smith. Oh, you guys are just talking about other things. Ify says monitoring the situation. That's interesting. So again, doesn't mean they're putting in a bid, doesn't mean anything, but this is also the same person that I think said that Emile Smith-Rowe was being monitored by Chelsea, and that ended up being true. And Arsenal told them no. So again, like interest from other clubs opens up a conversation of whether or not this is, how the situation could end. Not necessarily saying that it has already concluded. Zitch says either way, it's a win-win for Arsenal. Either we have two really good goalkeepers or we have one good goalkeeper and some cash in the bank. That's how I kind of think about it as well. Like emotionally, if you take your emotions out of it, it's at least for a season, it's a really good situation for us. And it could be really, really good in the summer. I don't think it's anything to like really panic about, but it is something to, it's Raya came straight in and after 4 games started. And so it is a big conversation, and it will continue to be one until we kind of see what the pattern is. We have to see who starts against PSV, who starts against Tottenham. I think that'll tell us a lot. This is not the last time we're going to talk about Aaron Ramsdale versus Raya, and if this is the right thing to do, if we're overcomplicating it, if it makes sense. And for me, I think it does make sense. I can understand what Arteta wants to do, and other clubs are doing it, and it's working for them. So I don't understand why it couldn't work for us. I'm not saying it cannot work for us, but I can see clubs looking and saying, is this somebody that we can bring in? Because he's very, very talented, and there's no denying that. Um, Nashville says, if I were Ramsdale and Raya plays a majority of games till Christmas, I'm marching in and I'm giving my walking papers in January, devalues the fee we get. That is something to consider, is that if he were to go in January or want to leave in January, that would hurt us in terms of recouping a fee. So it has to be managed properly. I don't think you can just drop Ramsdale and then we never see him again. If that happens and Raya becomes the clear number one before January, like you already said, Nashville, then he's definitely trying to leave in January, and that's going to hurt us. So, yeah, it's tough. But it's a situation that was totally created by Arsenal, probably unnecessarily so. And so now we see how it unfolds. Chill Dude says, where's the energy when Leno get the same treatment, even worse in terms of pure goalkeeping ability? Ramsdale is below Emmy and Leno. People were mad about Leno just being cast aside. But at the same time, I think even before Ramsdale came in, there was already a feeling that in order for us to progress, we needed a different type of goalkeeper. And the narrative around Ramsdale did not change until, about halfway through last season, where his distribution kind of went down. Like up until then, like everybody was fine with Ramsdale. There wasn't any like red flags or anything. So there was energy towards, the Leno situation. It just wasn't as big because we knew we had to upgrade on him anyway. So, and Martinez didn't want to fight for his spot. So if you don't want to fight for your spot, I'm not fighting for you, and so I was perfectly happy with seeing Martinez go. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to have any question marks around his position. And so he left, and that's just what it is. It's fine. Fan says, I understand why Bayern are monitoring the situation, but Chelsea monitoring the situation is kind of funny. Didn't they get like 2 goalkeepers this past summer? I think they may have gotten 2, but it's like they want Sanchez. I think they brought in Sanchez as kind of like a filler number 1, but they'll go big for a goalkeeper like a number 1 soon. That's what I've read. Nashville says to Yo-Yo, Ramsdale has been a very good player for us. If he is outright dropped, I would not even be mad if he went to Spurs. I would be upset by that, actually. I'm not on the same page there at all. Richie Rabbit says, we'd be mad to turn down $60 million for a goalkeeper who cost us a fraction of that. Good business, and it helps reposition us as a club that sells well. So there you go, you guys. We're not going to go through this much longer. Obviously, I've had a lot of content come out today. I really would love it if you guys took a look at the first She Knows Arsenal podcast that was uploaded today with Watson Hirschfield. That's Watson on Instagram. We talked all about Everton, and we talked in depth about Ramsdale versus Raya as well. Declan Rice, everything, and the clips are up too. So please go and check those out. I probably will come back later. This was impromptu, but at 1, which is 9 p.m. your guys' time, we're going to talk a little bit more about and react a little bit more to some of the content that came out post the Everton game, which should be fun. But I love you guys so much. This was really quick, and it's so nice that 100 of you guys showed up, which is amazing. But if you want more content and you want to hear more about Everton and the game and how it unfolded, please go watch that podcast. Like, it was so much fun to make. I woke up butt ass early to make it, so you guys go look at it, go listen to it. And also, the podcast is officially up on Amazon, iTunes, Amazon, Apple, and Spotify. So you guys can just look at the description here, and you guys can click on the link and you'll see it there. Love you guys to death. You guys are fucking amazing. And hopefully, I'll see you guys at 9 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. PST for a little bit more content on Everton and reacting to some of the funny videos that came out after the game. Love you guys. See you.